Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I cannot tell you how excited I am to bring you guys this video today. As you can tell by the title, it is all about teaching on a cart and how to do that. Really, a lot of these tips could apply to a lot of different subjects that you're teaching on a cart, but for me personally, I taught art on a cart for actually 2 years. And in fact, I didn't just teach art on a cart for 2 years. I also was split between 2 schools and I had to actually pack up my car with the supplies from one school and take it to the other school. I only had the supply storage at one of the schools, and so that's why I had to do that. But I filled my car with supplies, carried it into the school, loaded up my cart, carried it back out of the school, and then I went to my other school and loaded up a cart again. I was also art in a cart without an elevator at one of my schools, so that was interesting. But basically today I'm bringing you tips from my 2-year experience of teaching art in a cart. And I do want to just say, yeah, it's not easy at first, but I am telling you, it will make you such a better teacher. And there's just so many good things to actually take from it. You're going to learn so much. I was asked to do this video by so many of you because for COVID right now and reopening schools, a lot of you are being asked to teach on a cart. And that way the students are going to be traveling to specials that you'll be going to their classroom, which is a really good idea, but it adds a lot of stress. And a lot of these teachers who are being asked this, you have your cozy classroom. When I was art in a cart, I didn't have a classroom yet, and I was really excited to get one day, but I was like, okay, I just gotta make it through this, and then one day I'll get my classroom. But these teachers already have their classroom, and now they're being asked to teach on a cart. So it's hard, but I promise you, it will teach you so much. You're gonna just take so much from it, and it will make you a better teacher in the long run. And hopefully the tips I have for you today will help. Okay, so I have my notes because I wanted to make sure I included everything. I have a few different categories. The first one is questions to ask yourself, the classroom teachers, or the admin before you start going into the classroom on your cart. Ask all the questions you can. Get as much information about your situation as you can so that you can be prepared. So some of the questions that I have jotted down that I want you to ask yourself right now, or go to your admin or teachers if you don't know the answers already. Number 1 is, do you have time in between your classes and your schedule in order to travel? A lot of times that's something that they overlook, but it does take time to load up your cart, go to the next class. So you're gonna need a little bit of window there, and if you don't have it, that's a conversation that I would suggest you have, because like I said, they just might not realize. Number 2, if you have 2 floors in your school, you need that key for that elevator. So where is it? Are you getting one for yourself to have on? You probably should have a personal one. You don't want to be running to the office to get your key in between each switch or anytime you go up and down. So if you can get your own copy, that would probably be best. The third question to ask is, how are the desks set up in the classroom? And now this might differ with COVID and everything. And a lot of the tips I'm giving you, I don't know, it might be a little different this year just because of COVID. My experience, of course, it wasn't during this whole pandemic. So take that, with these tips, but you gotta know at least, what are you walking into? How are the teachers setting up their classroom? Go visit the classrooms and even maybe ask if you can just take a couple of photos so that you remember, but that's gonna help you when you're prepping supplies and just know like how to prep, how many stations and stuff to prep for. Again, with COVID, I don't think there's gonna be any sharing of supplies, so that will be different. But for me, I made sure I knew how many kids were sitting together, and that way I could figure out how many like workstations, like caddies, I could prep and have for everybody. Ask the teachers what supplies the students already have. Again, with COVID, not going to be a lot of sharing. If they have supplies already in the classroom, they're going to use those. It's just easier for you. Like for example, glue sticks, scissors, like those are things that I realized very quickly I didn't need to bring because all the classrooms already had those simple supplies, pencils, stuff like that. You just don't need to bring it. You don't need to load up your cart with it, maybe a few backups, but if it's in the classroom, you don't really need to bring those things, and so that's a conversation to have so you can prep and figure out what to bring and what not to bring. Okay, the classroom setup and the technology, kind of similar to how the desks are set up, But ask the teacher or go figure it out in the classroom, like what technology do they have? Do they have a projector? Do they have a smart board? Do you need an extra wire to bring so that you can hook it up? Do they not want you to hook it up? Maybe some teachers like have their stuff all hooked up, and so you can't rely on that. Do they have a carpet area? Do they have a big work table, like a horseshoe table that you can do your demos and stuff on? Now, once again, I sound like a broken record, but with COVID, I don't think you're going to be bringing kids around to do a demo anyway. But if you're watching this from the future, hey, and COVID and the pandemic and all of that is long gone, doesn't that sound nice? That way, at least people can reference this video from whenever, they're watching it. Speakers is another one that I jotted down. Make sure you know if the teacher has speakers or you need to bring your own speakers with your laptop. Like a lot of the stuff with technology, you just want to have a heads up to see what they already have. All right, my sixth question for you to ask the teachers is a big one, and it's, will teachers remain in the room? And I'll get into this a little bit later, the whole teacher dynamic of them being in the room, but you just want to know, like, are they going to stay in the room? Are they going to leave? Are they going to be back and forth? It's just a good thing to know ahead of time. That way you can kind of prepare, which, like I said, I'll get into in a later category. Artwork that needs to dry. Where are you going to put the artwork that needs to dry? I put it in the hallway. I just lined the outside of the classroom on the floor, like against the wall, so it was out of the way of traffic, but that worked for me. Some teachers, though, wanted me to have it in the classroom by the sink area, and we lined them in there. So just kind of have that conversation with the teachers. Where am I going to put what paintings and stuff like that? And then going off of artwork, do the classroom teachers want to keep the artwork, or are you able to take it and hang it up in the hallway? A lot of classroom teachers actually were like, hey, I'll take that. Instead of you taking it and passing it out later, I'll take it right away and I'll hang it on my bulletin boards or right outside my classroom. And that's just a little less work for you, unless you really want to display it yourself, but just have that conversation with them to figure out, what would you like me to do with all the artwork when I'm done? I think I ended up doing a little bit of both. Like if the teacher wanted to keep it, they kept it and they just put it up in their classroom. And then a lot of it I did like to display because I just enjoy putting the artwork out for everybody to see. Okay, the last main question to ask yourself is, how are you going to set up procedures, set up your lesson structure and your demo in a different classroom, a non-art classroom? So what's that going to look like? Like when you come in, how are you going to start class? How are you going to signal to the students, okay, now it's art time? Now usually the classroom teacher will say, put away your things, it's time to give so-and-so your attention, it's art class time. But it's good to have something consistent that maybe you do every time. Like maybe it's like a motto about being creative every time, or just a simple chime that you hit it and then it's time to start. All right, so once you've asked all the questions, you've asked yourself questions, you've asked the teachers questions, admin questions, now it's time to think about time and organization. All right, so I just went into my supply closet and got some containers because that's what we're going to talk about next. All of the containers and organization that I use. As teachers, we love containers. We have many of them, and you will use all of the containers when you're on a cart. I love these from Target. I don't know if they are there anymore, but it's the cubby bins because they come with a lid. So on your cart, you can stack them. Anything that you can stack is great. You could even get just like simple plastic containers with lids at the Dollar Tree or Walmart or something like that. But being able to stack them and label them is key. I also used these a ton because you can stack them as well. So I would bring like finished early activities in here, any worksheets that I wanted to hand out, visual aids and stuff like that, I'd put in here, and that way I would know to just be able to grab it and it sits on your cart really nicely. I just use simple caddies for a lot of my grab and go materials as well. Anything that you can just literally pick up and put out on the tables as fast as possible. You don't want to be counting out anything when you walk into that room because every second is so important. You're gonna be surprised by how fast time goes because a lot of it is just transition. Like when you get into the room, getting the kids to put away their stuff. Some teachers already have the kids having like their stuff away as you walk in. Some don't. Some are still wrapping up what they're working on. And so a lot of your art time is unfortunately taken up by transitions, and it's going to go faster than you think. So you need to try to save time as much as possible by pre-prepping every single little supply that you possibly can. I also use student helpers like crazy. I would go in and the kids would know to just go to my cart. I would tell them right away what to grab and they would send it out. If you can do that, great. If you can't during this, weird pandemic time, just try to organize it as best as you can and label it so it can be as quick as possible. Same thing with technology. I suggest that you label any cords that you bring. If you're trying to set up something to show the students, make sure you're labeling your power cord, even your projecting cord, like all of those things, just so you don't have to think about it. Have them in little different containers so you can just grab and go with even your cords, and they'll save you a lot of time. Another thing to save you time is wipes, and with the schools reopening, I do think there's probably going to be a lot of sanitary wipes to begin with, but even when I was doing this years ago, I brought wipes to the classroom because it's so much easier to hand out wipes, have the kids wipe their hands, wipe their desk, instead of having them line up at the sink, which not all classrooms have sinks. So let's add that to the questions that you have to add your teachers, because yeah, you don't always have a sink and that causes problems. So wipes will help that, but also bringing buckets of water to the classroom. That will help too, because then the kids can just put their dirty brushes and stuff into the bucket, and you can then take the bucket back to wherever you're cleaning your supplies. I would do that honestly, even if the classroom has a sink. I wouldn't use it because it's going to take up time. I did at one point try to use the classroom sinks, but then I found myself trying to clean these brushes and then get to my next class. It's a lot easier just to bring a bucket and then just throughout the whole day, add to the bucket, and at the end of the day, you just wash all of it. And that way you're not wasting time doing that and stuck in kind of someone else's classroom, like cleaning up. I was always nervous too about leaving their classroom dirty. Like I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure I left it as clean as possible. And the wipes really help with that. Not using their sink really helps with that too. You may have teachers who don't care and, you can use the sink, but in my experience, it was just nice to kind of contain everything into my own little space and then take it with me. All right, so what should be on your actual physical cart? I suggest that you bring a name tag of yourself, bring your rules and expectations, and then also bring any visual aids that you'll repeatedly use. And what you can do if you have a cart that is magnetic, I would just clip a bunch of visuals and posters around the cart, and that way when I got to the classroom, I would just take them off the cart, put them up on the front board, and that way too you're not having to write out your name. You're not writing out like steps to a lesson. Like I would prep all of that onto big visuals first and bring that to the classroom. You don't want to walk in and have to say, okay, step 1 is this, step 2 is this, and write out things on the board. You want to just be able to pick it up, clip it onto that board, and start teaching. All right, so we've talked about questions to ask and how to get prepared. We've talked about kind of how to save time and be organized and things to put on your physical cart. Now let's talk about kind of the dynamics of when you enter the classroom and how it can be a little muddled when it comes to you and the classroom teacher. This is something that I don't think I even thought of or realized when I started teaching art in a cart, but it's something that you're going to find, and it's something that you should be prepared for. I don't even know if I have necessarily the answer to fix this, but it's just something to, like I said, just be aware of. That's going to happen. So if you're an art teacher like me and you had elementary students come to your art room, occasionally, they'll call you their classroom teacher. It's just out of habit. They say that name all the time. Well, when their classroom teacher is still in the room and they're sitting up at their desk, it's going to happen way more. Not to mention, they're actually going to go to their classroom teacher that's sitting at their desk and ask things, ask for help, ask to go to the bathroom, all kinds of stuff, ask for a Band-Aid. Like, they're going to forget that it's your time with them and you're the teacher right now because their teacher's sitting right there. Even if the teacher leaves, it helps, but I still find that they get confused because it's their classroom. They haven't left that area. They're not changing that environment. They're going to think that the rules and expectations, that classroom that are always there throughout the day are going to remain the same during art class. And it can be frustrating because you know that not every teacher has the same expectation. I've definitely been in situations where I had different expectations than the teacher's room that I was in, and it could either be the teacher is more lenient than you, or the other way, the teacher is more strict than you. As you guys might know if you've been following me for a while, I like my students to be communicating and collaborating during art, but there's some teachers who don't want that. They don't understand that. They don't, they think it should be a silent room. And a lot of times they would jump in and actually tell their class to stop talking. And the conversations they were having were about art, and they were great. In that moment, I don't know, I'm not confrontational, so I kind of just step back and let it go because it was their room. I'm sure if you're a more confrontational person, you could probably have a conversation and say, hey, when it's my time for art, these are the expectations I have for my students. This is what I like to see. I'd like your support in that, or something like that. Have an open conversation about it, but it does get touchy because it's the room. And to me, it just never was something that I wanted to address. I kind of took a step back in that, and it didn't happen often enough, I guess, for me to really worry about it. If the teacher does leave, that's probably the best option, but you can't tell them to leave their own classroom. So I think you just kind of have to go with the flow and work together as best as possible, and just kind of, don't get upset about it. Like if the teacher tells your kids to do something that you wouldn't normally do in your classroom, especially if this is a temporary situation where you are doing this because of COVID and reopening schools and everything, I wouldn't make a big deal about it. I think we're all just doing the best that we can. And even if you are art in a cart like I was, I just kept thinking, one day I'll have my own classroom. One day I'll have my own classroom, and it came true. So just keep chugging along and do the best that you can. I think if you guys are prepared, if you ask the right questions, if you prep your cart in a way that you can grab and go and put stuff on the board, put stuff in the classroom supply-wise, if you prepare yourself enough that you can then gather the supplies back up and leave on time, I think that you will be successful. And just remember, for most of you, this probably is temporary and you can do it. You just gotta keep going one day at a time, stay positive as best as you can, and be grateful that, yeah, you're not in your classroom right now, but you're still teaching. You're still in front of kids. You're still spreading that joy of art to these kids, which is amazing. And a neat little bonus is if the classroom teacher is in the classroom and stays in there, or even goes back and forth, they can kind of see what you're doing. It's a great way to advocate for the arts. They can see their kids, they can see you, they can see your passion, they can see the kids' passion, and that's not all the time. Usually, the teacher will drop the kids off at your class and they see the artwork in the hallway, but they don't see that process. And art is all about process. It's not so much about the end result. So I've had teachers so many times say, oh, look what Johnny did. That's really cute. But they didn't see Johnny's learning process. They didn't see how much he's grown. And you can tell them, but to see it is a whole nother thing. So in a way, bringing art into the classroom is such a great opportunity. And maybe your school will realize how amazing the art program is and appreciate it. So you have to think of those positives too, because that is something very, very valuable to have, to spread that love of art for your students, for the other teachers in your school. It's a wonderful thing. All right, guys, I hope that helped you. I kind of just had so many thoughts in my head about teaching art in a cart. I got them all out, but if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me or DM me on Instagram. I'd be more than happy to answer any specific questions you may have, because I tried to cover as much as possible that was going on in my brain, but there might be other things or other questions you have. So don't ever hesitate to contact me with those, and I can help you out. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, do that before you go, and make sure you hit the push notification bell. That way you get notified every time I upload. You can follow me on Instagram at Michele R. Rose. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Don't forget to find the beauty in each and every day, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye!